Hello everybody, this is Metz here again. Welcome to this video. Haven't posted in a while, so this is a good opportunity. In this video I wanted to talk about the interesting link between autism and obsessive compulsive disorder. If you've watched my other videos, you know that I was recently diagnosed with low support needs autism spectrum disorder. And saying that, obsessive compulsive disorder, or at least OCD thoughts and OCD behaviors and symptoms, have always, as far as I can remember, I've, let's say, for a very, very long time, been part of my reality. And today what I want to do is I want to explore that interesting link between ASD and OCD. HAKLMNOP. Now you know your ABCs. Won't you sing along with me? Quiet. Now, this is an interesting topic because quite often, ASD comes with a lot of anxiety, or tendency for anxiety. And I think that, I'm not an expert in this, but I think that our tendency for anxiety can express itself in different ways. For some people, it might kind of express itself in a more kind of general anxiety disorder where everything makes them anxious. For some people, it might kind of get laser focused on something, some physical thing, like a phobia, But I think for a lot of us, it goes the OCD route. And I think this is partly because a lot of us maybe, what is typically called Aspergers, well, not anymore, but what used to be called Aspergers, or let's say low support needs autism spectrum disorder. That's a mouthful. There's an aspect of this that's a lot about rumination and perseveration of thoughts and obsessions and so on. And I think that lends itself very well to obsessive compulsive disorder. And so it's very interesting that you often see those two things combining. And I think in some cases it might even be a meaningful thing to say that that part of the obsessive compulsive disorder or the obsessive compulsive thoughts and actions are somehow, I don't know if I want to say cause, but strongly influence, or at least they partly have their root in the ASD. Such that if you manage the ASD, you can sort of better manage the OCD. Yes, I just had a thought that said, it's all letters after all. It's not funny. I don't know why. Okay, moving on. So I want to give you a history of my OCD. It sounds terrible. A history of my OCD. That sounds terrible, but it's actually quite interesting. So, a broad history, really quick, just to tell you, if you're having these symptoms, because I know, okay, how am I going to do this? Here's a bottom line message that I want to say. OCD makes you feel like there's something really wrong with you and like you're going crazy and like you're alone and nobody feels like this. And it's wrong. So many people have this. So I want you to, if I can make you feel, if you're struggling with this and I can make you feel like there's somebody else like you, then I will have been successful. But also if I can make you interested in the link between OCD and ASD and interested in OCD in general, that'd be great too. Okay, so OCD, as you might know, this is a loose definition, but often it involves intrusive thoughts that are anxiety-provoking in nature. Now, the truth is that it's not technically the thoughts that are anxiety-provoking, but rather the fact that when we have these thoughts, we react to them with anxiety. And I can tell you about some of these thoughts. For me, that's the obsessive part. We tend to obsess over these thoughts, and then what happens is that, let's say, a non-OCD person would react to these thoughts by saying, "Well, this is unreasonable. I don't really want to think about this. So I'm going to think about something else, and well, this thought doesn't really represent me, and so on." Or it's an interesting thought, but I don't really give it too much weight. Whereas we tend to go, "Oh my God, did I just think this again? Oh my God." And then we tend to have this anxiety. And the way we express this anxiety quite often is through compulsions, through little behaviors that reduce the anxiety. Now, there is a concept which I'm not sure what kind of validity it has in the clinical psychology world, but there is something that some people call pure OCD, where it's mostly about intrusive thoughts, and I don't think you have the compulsions, but at least not physical compulsions. I think it's all inside. And that's interesting too. Your compulsions might be mental, and I kind of have cognitive, and I kind of have a mix, I think, of that as well. So, my history with OCD. OCD has been part of me for a very, very long time, since I was a child. The earliest I can remember. Okay. First, let me say this: the OCD with me has always been of a particular type. You know, there's many types of OCD. Some people are afraid of viruses. They feel like they're constantly going to get sick and there's viruses everywhere. Some people might be afraid of, certain things and so on, kind of religious OCD. My OCD has always involved magical thinking, one, and the death or disappearance of loved ones. By the way, trigger warning. So, as far as I can remember, I have always been obsessed by thoughts where that said basically, the people that you like are going to die. The people that you like are going to get hurt. They're going to either disappear or die, and that would bring me a lot of anxiety. There's a chance that people disappear. There's a chance that people die. When I was young, the first thing I remember with OCD is I started at some point. I must have been like 11 or 12. I started doing these prayers. Now I'm not a believer. I'm not of any particular religious faith, but I started. So at that time, cartoons and Japanese cartoons were very, very important to me. I was a big fan of them, and very, very obsessed with Japanese cartoons and the characters in there and so on. And I actually started devising a prayer where I would pray to different cartoon characters. I know it sounds weird, but I would pray to different cartoon characters to protect my brother, to protect my family, so that they don't die. And I had to say a particular prayer the same way exactly, and I would run through a series of characters so that I would get the protection factor, let's say. And again, the underlying assumption was that if I don't do this, there's a chance these people will die, my family, let's say, and there's some remote chance that they might have died because I didn't say this prayer, right? And so you can imagine as a child, it's extremely anxiety provoking. But you run through the motions, you run through the prayer, and I kind of devised this prayer by myself, and I would say the same things using the same word, and there was a repetition of words and so on that I had to go through, a whole kind of thing. And nobody knew that my parents didn't know that. I would just run through that in my head. There were also movements involved and so on. And that's when it started for me, maybe around 10 or 11. There were all sorts of other ways it expressed itself. It expressed itself in Sometimes if I was walking and there was a crack on the street, or a line between different slabs of cement on the sidewalk, if I hit that line with my foot, somebody was going to die. Let's say my mother was going to die. The old step on the crack, break your mother's back. But in my case, it was step on the crack, your mom's going to die. And so I had to not step on it. And if I did step on it, I had to go back and put my foot over it and not step on it and keep walking. It would also, over the years, that same obsession always continued, but the way that it expressed itself in terms of compulsions and the particular nature of it changed a little bit. But it took on many faces. One of the faces it took is, specifically talking about face, when I looked at the mirror, if I happened to cross a mirror and I wasn't smiling, let's say I happened to cross the mirror and I saw my reflection like this, the fact that I wasn't smiling, to me, I got anxiety because I would have this thought that said, well, if you're not smiling, it's going to kill your parents, or it's going to kill your mom, or it's going to kill your brother, or it's going to kill your friend, or it's going to kill your girlfriend. Okay? She's going to die. And so I needed to, therefore, make a smile. So every time I would pass the mirror, I'd have to do a smile and do like this. 1, 2. And I would say this, 1, 2. And sometimes I didn't feel like I did it strong enough. So I'd go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, again and again and again, so that I could have somehow the absolute 100% guarantee that they were not going to die. What other ways did it manifest itself? Yes. If I listen to the radio, for example, in the car, or if I listen to TV or something, or a show, and if the volume, let's say I close the radio, I shut the radio off, or I shut the TV off. If the person, let's say on the radio, was talking, and they were hitting a high note when I shut it off. So if they were going, the weather today is going to be, and then I shut it off. The fact that the note went high, that meant that somebody was going to go up to heaven. Basically, somebody was going to die. So I had to turn the radio back on and wait for them to go pop, and then shut it off, because then it wasn't going high. It was pop. Same thing with the television. If I was watching and a character was going, "What are you doing with this?" and then I would close it. Sorry, not close it. I'm French Canadian. That's why I would shut it off. The fact that it said, "What are you doing with this?" and then I shut it off meant that somebody was going to die. So I had to make sure that the sound, the note in a way that's being hit, "What are you doing with this?" I had to make sure it gets down. And so I would often kind of shut the TV off, put it back, turn it back on, shut it off, turn it back on, so that I can hit that note. When I would brush my teeth, I would hit the toothbrush against the side of the sink to get kind of the water off of the toothbrush. And I would do that a certain number of times. There were a lot of numbers, 7s, 5s, 11s, 8s were good numbers. 6 was a bad number. 3 was a bad number. And so I needed to hit that subscribe button, by the way. Hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Anyways, I needed to hit the toothbrush against the side of the sink, let's say 7 times. Tuk, 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 all right? But if it went tuk, 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 then I had to do it again, because it went tuk, 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 tuk. It went up, so somebody's going to die. So I need to find a way to go tuk, 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 so that the sound kind of was at least equal or went down a little bit, to make sure somebody stays on Earth. This is crazy, right? But that's the thing, it's not crazy, because you're living your life like this, and you're not insane, and you don't tell anybody this, and you can still work and have friends and enjoy yourself, and most times. But this is going on in your head constantly. This is OCD, and it's very much associated to Aspergers, or low support needs, autism spectrum disorder. Other ways it would manifest itself. But I also had the door check-in compulsion. I would constantly check if the door is locked, because if not, somebody's gonna come and kill my wife or girlfriend or family during the night, and it'll be my fault. The thoughts also kind of progressed, but they were always kind of the same basic idea. So I had thoughts when I was 17, 18, 19 maybe. Even in my 20s actually. I had these compulsive thoughts that when I would go to bed, I would think, you're going to kill your family tonight. Or you're going to kill your girlfriend tonight. If I had my girlfriend over, or I was sleeping over at my girlfriend's. You're going to kill your girlfriend tonight. Or you're going to kill your parents in your sleep. You won't know, but you're going to do it. The anxiety that provokes, and then you start going the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then smiling 1, 2, 3, just to make sure that you have some magical response to that, so you can control that. You can't, of course. It's all compulsion, but it makes you feel like at least you tried something. Spoiler alert, I never killed anybody. Not yet. No, Jesus Christ. No. But see, again, I react to this. It's just saying that as a joke makes me kind of, yeah, I had that. That's when I also had a brief period. It's really interesting, and I'm a bit ashamed of this, of course, but when I started seeing my girlfriend, and I was very much, in love and obsessive in a way about her, because, I'm autistic, and if I'm interested in somebody, I'm interested in 1,000%, and I was starting to go out with her, and she's wonderful, and so on, and then I would just have this intrusive thought that went like, yeah, but you're gay. And I would go, no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. You're just hiding it. And I would just make me so anxious. Not because there's something wrong with being gay, obviously, but because I was like, no, I love my girlfriend. I like her. I want to keep, you're gay. So you're not going to actually end up with her. And I was like, oh, no. And then I would have, to have some sort of ritual for that, or remind myself that I'm not gay. And it's terrible to say that, isn't it? How somebody's sexual orientation could be somebody else's anxiety-provoking obsession. What else? So yeah. Oh, and at some point it kind of morphed into something else. I'm trying to hurry up here because my kids are arriving any minute, and they don't know I have a YouTube channel. Because if they do, they're going to leave bad comments on all the videos. I know, because I have this other YouTube channel for work, and that's what they do. Another way the obsession kind of expressed itself at some point, this is a bit later on, well, no, actually, in my 20s, 30s, was this idea that I couldn't stop thinking that I was questioning reality, questioning people. Are there really people in those bodies, or is my wife just a robot? Is there any feeling person in there? Are my parents real, or are they just figments in my imagination? And you can imagine like this. This is actually what drove me to go see a psychiatrist, and eventually got prescribed an antidepressant, which I take for the obsessive thoughts in a really, really small dose, and it's helped a lot. But I still get them occasionally. And so these thoughts, these kinds of philosophical obsessions and anxiety about the nature of free will, the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality, the nature of other minds. But throughout all of this variety, oh yes, I once had a big phase where I was obsessed and worried that I was just a brain in a vat, and that all the beauty of the world around me was not true, and so on. But if you notice, it's really interesting, because if you take, the earlier version of that, which is just, your parents are going to die if you don't say this prayer, or if you don't tap your toothbrush a certain way, or click the lights on and off, a certain number of times. If you take those kind of earlier signs and those later kind of manifestations where it's about like philosophical anxiety and so on, what's fascinating and interesting is that what they have in common is always the same theme. It's fear of being alone. fear of being isolated and alone. I'm not sure why. I moved a lot in my life from country to country. That might be a reason why. The person who diagnosed me, my ASD, actually, did she say that? I forget. But anyways, yes, I did tell her about that eventually, and she says that that might just be the way I express feeling lonely, or it comes out as natural philosophical obsessions, whereas to a non-autistic person it would come out as, I feel lonely, I got to see some friends. But to me it comes out as, well, my God, I'm lonely. What if I'm the only person in the world and there's no other consciousnesses? And then I start panicking about that. Whereas a normal non-ASD person, normal in brackets, would have gone on and said, hey, I feel lonely, I gotta hang out with people, you know. And so but it's always been that obsession. I still get those occasionally, and I have to deal with them, and that's the way it is. But I just think that that's fascinating. It's really interesting. It's not pleasant, but it's interesting nonetheless. And so yeah, so that's my, I could go in more detail, but that is basically my kind of broad relationship with OCD and obsessions and compulsions. Now, just to mention, I have other obsessions that are kind of positive, for which there's no anxiety, so there's no need for the compulsions. But this is my history with OCD, and I'm wondering, what is your relationship with OCD? Do you have any of those symptoms? Is this part of your life as well? What does yours look like? Let's talk about it. Let's get interested in it. And again, being interested in it doesn't mean that we're minimizing it or saying, oh, it's no problem. It's something can be a problem and painful and yet be interesting, but because it is. We're alive, and this stuff is interesting that's happening to us. And it doesn't mean that interesting, when I say that, I mean that it's not negative. It can be negative and still warrant our attention and warrant our curiosity. That's the way I approach autism on this channel, is to approach it through the lens of curiosity and interest. And so I think my kids are here. I hear the school bus arriving. I'll catch you guys later, okay? Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you. Bye.